Welcome to the T's and C's,
Tisa and Chantal,
also known as the Terms and Conditions.
Hello to our global pandemic fellow listeners. We are on week 5 of Surviving Society Presents T's and C's, The Reflection, with myself, Chantal, and
Tisa.
Today, our special guest is radio presenter, creative, journalist, all-round legend, Afua Adom. Hi, Afua.
Hiya, how are you guys doing?
We're all right. I mean, in a little pre-chat then, you've made me feel a bit, well, not guilty. I think guilty is the wrong word, but you've made me feel like I need to be a bit more grateful / happier about this situation because you were very positive.
Do you know what, though? I think don't you think that we put ourselves under pressure that we should feel this or we should feel that or we have to feel this way or we have to feel that way? Because nobody that I know, or I think anybody in living memory, has ever had to go through what we're going through right now. So we don't know how any of us are going to react. And I think it's just everybody is so entitled to feel how they feel. Like today I'm feeling okay and a bit more positive. But if you caught me like a couple of days ago, I was probably crying into a tin soup. You know what I mean? Like I find that like I have like 2 or 3 days where I'm fine. And then this day where it just creeps up on me and perhaps you feel a bit penned in. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like at the moment there's lots of pressure to be like, you should re-wallpaper your whole house and landscape your garden and learn all these new skills. And you're going to come out of this like a DJ and a part-time decorator and learn how to cut a hedge into the shape of a person and all these kind of things. And it's just like, for the first couple of weeks, I was just like, listen, if I can get out of bed and get dressed and get the child dressed and find something with words on it to put in front of her, everyone's fed, no one's dead, then we've made it. You know what I mean?
You know what, right? That matches up with how we should be. But because you're programmed to consume and always worry about the future because you're constantly on that kind of treadmill, but that's how we've been programmed. Right?
Yeah.
But I was doing some kind of reading on hunter-gatherer societies, right? How they survive. So we're looking at the San people in Southern Africa, or they'd be called Bushmen, is what we would call them, right? Bush people, that's the derogatory term, but they're called the San. But basically, there's a book by a guy called J.C. Scott that said, it's called Against the Grain. And he said, these are one of the oldest people on the planet. They've been alive 150,000 years, but they don't have pandemics. They can survive because they don't desire more than they have. They only have what they need. That stops them going insane, no mental health. So maybe he argues that we've got it all wrong. Maybe farming, settling, cities, all this paranoia that we have is unnecessary.
Well, do you know what? It's not a bad argument, is it, really? If you think about it, if that's how we were, if we were satisfied with what we had, I mean, you wouldn't have people stockpiling 6,000 to 8,000 toilet rolls, would you? Or doing any of that kind of stuff. You wouldn't have panic and all that kind of stuff. And perhaps we wouldn't have a pandemic spread in the first place because people wouldn't be feeling the need to move from this place to that place, to see different cities, to see different things. If we were just chill in our own little villages and cool with where we are, we probably wouldn't be where we are now, right?
No.
You're big right. I agree with both of you. I think you're also right in what you were saying, Afua. We've just got to ride the emotions, ride the wave of how we're feeling one day, how we're feeling the other day, and try not to put pressure on ourselves. Just in thinking more broadly about parenting in this time and what that's like, particularly for, I mean, we mainly talk to people that are students or that are academics or that are teachers and also creatives as well. So that sort of needing to do that sort of output mainly online now, should be 100% online. What is that like whilst also trying to manage family life? Like, do you have any bits of advice that you could pass on to some of our listeners?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, for me, it's literally take every single day as it comes. And that sounds really boring and really run of the mill, but it literally is. You have to, I think for me, it had to be very adaptive to roll with the punches. So Naima's with me most of the time, and she's had some time out with her dad as well, which has really helped. And he's not usually that good, but I think in the face of a global pandemic, he was like, maybe fatherhood's a thing. Like, I don't know, maybe I should do this before I die. And so that's really helped to have some time apart. And do you know what? It's okay for parents to admit that their kids are driving them mad. Like, that's fine. Parents need to be able to say that and feel like it's okay. It doesn't mean that you hate your child. It just means that they've used far too many words today, and that's fine. And for me, it's just been literally just rolling with the punches. I mean, when the schools closed, I was kind of anticipating it. But I think for some reason, I was talking to my friend about this the other day, is that even though we anticipated school closure, we didn't anticipate social distancing. So I was like, oh, we'll just have the nanny, like, have her while I go to work. There's no nanny. A nanny doesn't exist. Like, you can't do that. And so that kind of threw me. But then for if I had to go into the office or into the studio, I would just take her with me. And now we're at home, and that's a lot easier. But also, our kids are, I don't know about everybody else's, but my child is very resilient, and she's very good at adapting to the environment around her. So we just take each day as it comes, and we try and keep it simple. And I probably shouldn't say this, but, screen time guidelines are out the bloody window, because sometimes, as well as you needing a break, they need a break. They just want to sit down and watch something and just chill and not have to chat with you. I mean, we're doing Google Classroom at the moment, which is going quite well, but she seems to have done all our work by like 10:30. So we're both just sitting there looking at each other like, what do we do now? Like, do you know what I mean? So, but then we've had lots of time to, perfect riding our bikes and doing the garden and doing little bits and bobs. But I mean, honestly, it's just about keeping it simple, trying to make every day fun, talking about what's going on, because I'm a journalist and I tend to have the news on, make sure that I don't have it on too much, because you don't want her to be, listening to all those crazy headlines. But then, she's aware of what's happening. She knows there's a reason why she's not at school and not allowed to see her friends and all the rest of it. So we do talk about what's going on, how it affects, like, my mum, who lives in sheltered housing, so why we can't go and see her, and why she can't see her cousin and things like that. So we do talk about what's going on, but literally we just keep it simple. We try not to be too rigid, and we just try and be kind to ourselves and each other, and try and make it fun. Because, I mean, let's be real, since she was probably, when she went to nursery or went to school, we haven't had as much time together. We haven't had this much time together for us just to hang out and, sort of get to know each other again. And I mean, I find myself thinking things like, maybe I'll just homeschool her if I'm not homeschooled. Because most of the time when I think that, I'm drunk. But, I'm not ready for her to go back to school yet. I'm quite happy with our little sort of provincial pottering around life that we have developed. But I know for some parents it's not that easy. We've got a garden, which makes it amazing, and we're like 2 minutes from London Fields, which really helps. So we don't share a room. But I know there's parents that don't have it like that, that might live on the 17th floor, that have a broken lift, that can't get out every day. And I can't imagine what that must be like. I would definitely be going mad. But yeah, it's literally like, it's a massive cliche, but it's just taking each day it comes, keeping it simple, giving up screen time rules, and being easy with each other. That's it, really.
What I've been thinking about, Afua, and it's slightly different. I guess in my head, I kind of think of young people or children in terms of, like, you've got babies, then you've got like 5 to 11-year-olds, and then you've got sort of like pre-pubescent, and you've got teenagers, and you've got young people. And in our house, we have 2 young teenagers that live between their mums and here with their dad, who is my partner. And I feel like it's slightly different with teenagers because they're a lot more independent, but it's making me feel like with young people that, well, it's not just young people, with family members, if you're close to one another, you kind of have to think of every interaction in a sensitive way, because because there's so much going on right now. So how can we find ways to communicate with each other in a way that is taking into consideration how anxiety inducing all this is, how we don't all want to always be in the same place at the same time, but we're stuck with that, and just really trying to reify those practices of care within like everyday things. And it's difficult to do it, but I think that is how a lot of us are maybe going to survive this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really good point that you've made, actually, is that because there is so much going on at the moment, everything does feel like a bit more sensitive, doesn't it? And I think it's just kind of like, sometimes I just say to Naima, like, bloody knackered. Do you know what I mean? I'm just going to go and lie on the sofa and indulge in some Netflix. And she'd be like, yeah, I'm just going to lie on the floor next to you and do the same thing with her headphones on. I think it's just kind of admitting to each other that it's bloody hard. You know what I mean? And sort of, like I said before, nobody has ever lived through this. So we don't know how we're supposed to feel. And we don't know what we're supposed to do. And I'm not a trained teacher. And I'm barely a trained journalist, and I'm barely qualified to be a mom, and I'm selling all these 3 things, and I've got to like meal plan, and then you've got to bake things, and it's just like, what? It's a lot, isn't it? And I think sometimes it's just being really, really honest with them and just saying like, I don't actually know what I'm doing right now. It's gonna be fine, honestly.
What I found is there's a lack of understanding about space, about respecting spaces.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I was taught when I was growing up is my mum said, leave it as you find it, right? So when I'm cleaning up, I will leave it as I find it because I need to respect it because someone's coming after me, right?
Yeah.
So when it comes to the kitchen, bathroom, and it's those little tiny things, they're tiny things, but they can make a big difference, right? Yeah. And I'm trying to explain to people is, could you imagine being in prison? Right? That's why it's a big thing about respecting your space. Wow. Right? Yeah. Listen, I'm telling people like sitting in your toilet is a respect thing, right? Everyone's got it's those kind of spaces that it gets on top of people. So the dishes, little tiny things. Why do you keep leaving your handprint on the fridge? Would wind me up. Would drive me. Leave it as you find it.
Like I say, as someone that has had insight into the Regis family, the level of tidiness that you guys have, like, I mean, I aspire to it, definitely, but like it's a military operation over there.
But the logic makes sense, right? If you see something and it's like the kitchen, like silly things like the bread, wrap the bread up because that's how you found it. Don't just leave it because it will go off and it costs me money. Yeah, so leave it as you find it.
I think that is a very simple sort of thing that you can do as a family together, like as you say, T, leave it as you find it. Like, and right now that is quite just those little practices of care is really radical because it's just so hard getting from hour to hour. So if you're coming into the kitchen and it's a bit of a state, it does feel more.
Listen, if I in the morning, I'll kill someone. I'll kill someone in the morning. I'll see that.
And I don't know if what do you mean? I feel like I'm always in my kitchen. I mean, I'm in my kitchen now, and it's like I live in my kitchen. And there's only 2 of us, but someone in this house is always hungry. I don't understand it. I don't understand it at all. Why am I always cooking? Do you know what? I think I might be cooking now as I'm having this conversation.
Always bloody cooking. Always.
And I never cook this much.
My cousin, he works on the bins. He said the waste has gone up. He said it's like Christmas time every day. But there's not enough crews to pick up the rubbish.
That's another thing. My bin is trolling me every day. It's full. I don't understand it. I don't get it. And I hate taking out the bins. It's like I would literally rather gouge out my own eyes. And every single day I go to the kitchen bin and it's full to the point where I had to say to Naima, are you in the bin or are you putting stuff in the bin? I don't understand it.
In the bin?
Yeah. Have you put your clothes shoes in there? Have you got one of your friends in there? I don't understand it. Every day the bin is full. Unbelievable.
Just to sort of finish off a little bit, T, you've been talking about a bit of a hard conversation following on from talking about family to this stuff, but there's something that you sort of wanted to reflect on this week that
obviously we're all aware of the 5G conspiracy with the coronavirus, etc. Yeah. And that's kind of linked or kind of spun into this kind of China's racist against black people. And what's been troubling me is how this narrative is just kind of spun out of control. Like somehow this is new news, and not just that I've been seeing people sending videos of apparent Chinese racism against black people. Mm-hmm. Now, what the most perplexing thing is that these people don't really understand the nature of racism. Chinese people being racist to African people is not new. No, Indian racism, no Russian racism, it's not new, right? But all of a sudden, they've jumped on the bandwagon. Most recently, like about literally 2 minutes ago, that Dr. Umar, he jumped on the bandwagon. I've been to China, I've seen how bad. And I'm like, no, all you're doing is spreading hate. You've just played into that game or spreading hate, you're misinformed. You don't really understand what's happened. And what upsets me is black people. We know what it feels like to be on the receiving end. Exactly. And now I'm seeing people saying, Chinese this, China. No, don't let yourself do that. You let me down. You understand what it's like to be on the outside. You understand what it's like to have lies made up about you.
It's a really good point that you've made there, because, I mean, yes, we know that racism has been around against Africans from Chinese people and loads of other people for centuries. We've been here for centuries, and there's been loads of discussions had about the land grab in Africa by Chinese people, but it's not just by China, it's by loads of other people as well. And I think it's a way of, I think there's kind of there's sort of two prongs to this, and I think it's a way of black people like not wanting to be blamed for COVID-19, because we always get blamed for everything, don't we? It's either blacks or it's Muslims. If it's terrorism, it's this, it's that, the other thing. And I think, you know, because in this instance, people are saying it was China, it's wet markets, it's all them, you know. And so people are saying, you know, this is a prime opportunity for us not to get blamed. So let's pile on this anti-China feeling, this anti-China sentiment, where it's not necessary. And like you so rightly said, we know what it's like to be on the outside. We've been on the fringe of society for years, and there's no need to perpetuate these myths. But then I don't know about you guys. I am victim to so many WhatsApp warriors sending all this trash around on WhatsApp, all this fake news. And I think in our community, especially, God bless our aunties, we love them, but they will be the ones that are perpetuating all these myths and sending around all this rubbish. And especially at a time where COVID-19 seems to be having high death rates amongst ethnic minorities and especially black people. And we know that the NHS workers that have died have been predominantly of black and ethnic minority communities. You know, we are perpetuating these myths. We know that it's attacking us more. And it's a real shame to distract from what is a real issue about black people dying from the disease to just blame China for everything that's going wrong.
But so what I'm afraid of is, right, so given this current pandemic, and we've seen a shift in the geopolitical environment, and different people, different countries taking over, Chinese companies are taking over in a big way. So I don't want black people to start the narrative that, oh, look at, they put us at the bottom and this is all part of their plan. So, for example, at the moment, out of the 54 countries in Africa, 40 of them receive money from China.
Yeah.
So if you spin that narrative in a certain way, it looks like they planned it. But no, this has been going on a long time, and it's bigger than that. I wish black to sit there and look at the facts as they are. Don't jump on the conspiracy. Don't start saying stuff that's not true, because all you're doing is repeating hate for no reason.
Yeah.
And you're becoming that racist.
Yeah.
And that's what we don't want. That's the last thing I want us to be.
Absolutely. That's very true.
Definitely. It's just mad how there always has to be an other, doesn't there? And particularly in something like this, someone has to be blamed. And it's just so, as you say, the hate, it's just ugly, and we can do better than that. We should do better than that.
We can do better. And frankly, when I see stuff and I see a guy being so like vehemently horrible, so nasty, it's embarrassing to me. Yeah. Because we've seen people do that to us for a long time, unsubstantiated, in another country now. Before they used to say it to my face, but now it's another country, and it's not a nice thing to see.
Oh, guys, I think we're gonna have to wrap up there. But that was obviously we have to bring in the political and sociological there, but it was nice talking a little bit about parenting there. Thank you so much, Afua.
Thank you.
I feel like your positivity has come into my space, and it's positive vibes now to go through the rest of my day, and I hope that is the case for the rest of you guys.
Stay safe. Don't go mad.
Stay safe.
Don't go mad, and what else?
Then stop filling the bins. It's going to be fine.
Clean the kitchen. We'll see you next week, guys. Thank you.
Take care. See ya.